Hey guys, Vanessa Terry here with Notary to Notary, and in this video we're going to go over how to go through a seller side closing. So a seller side closing is when the seller is selling their property but they're signing their set of loan documents. Now a seller side closing, the package is usually substantially smaller than a refinance closing or a purchase closing. So I have here to help me today Mr. Angel Rosado. And we're going to go through this seller side package together. And just like in the other videos, I'm going to tell you what I typically say when I present documents and give you brief explanations of why I do what I do. So yes, when I arrive to the client's house, I do always, once we're seated, I ask them to, for their identifications, like a driver's license or a passport. Do you have your ID? Awesome sauce. And that is to prevent them from having to get up during the middle of the signing and go to their car or upstairs, things like that. You want to have everything ready to go as soon as you sit down. The next thing that I do is provide a pen. Now, especially like I said before, due to COVID, a lot of people have their own pens, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to provide the pen, and I'm also going to give him my business card and my stamp. Okay, here we go. So initially when I started, I always give a copy of the blank documents to the signer as long as that's what the lender requested. So when you take a signing order, they'll always tell you if you need to print a sample copy to present to the borrower, or if they've already submitted one to the borrower or mailed one or sent an e-copy. So if you don't have to print one, don't do it. But if they have told you that you need to print one, I always print it, and I give it to them right at the beginning of the closing. So this is your copy of everything we're going to sign right now. And like I said, the seller side closing is very small, so I think it's maybe like 20 pages. They always give you a shipping label, like I said before. Now your shipping label you're going to use to ship your docs out once you're finished via UPS or FedEx, and then we're going to jump right in. So the first page that we're getting to, cool little tip for you guys. The signing that we're doing today is actually for a property in Texas, and that's why I always say whenever, it's important to know what you're closing. Regardless of what state you're in, you have to abide by that state's rules for wherever the property is located. So even though we're signing in, let's say, Virginia, we're closing on a property, or he's selling a property in Texas, which means we have to conduct that closing as if we're in Texas. Texas is not an attorney state, but if it was an attorney state, we'd have a lawyer on the phone, because in attorney states, you have to have a attorney present or a part of supervising that closing. Now in Texas, as of last checking, I don't know if they changed it yesterday, you have to sign in blue ink. So even though in Virginia, blue ink's not required, you can do blue or black, we're closing on a Texas property, we have to sign in blue. So the first thing we're coming up on is a Patriot Act form that I'm going to complete. And like I mentioned before, anything that the signer is not completing, I fill it out while they're filling out their forms. That way someone's always signing. So the first thing that we're going to have him fill out is the customer contact form, which basically just asking for your name, address, phone number, email. You're getting proceeds from selling your property. So typically, anytime you do a seller side close, there's going to be a form in the package just asking the seller how he wants to receive his proceeds. So he can either get a check mailed to him or have the proceeds wired, and then he's going to sign at the bottom. So we're going to fill that out. And while he's doing that, I am then going to complete the identity verification form using his driver's license. And with this closing, I am also going to get a copy of his driver's license as well. Another thing to note, because I'm making these corrections now, the affidavits on these forms say state of Texas and county of Bell. So I'm not in Texas or in Bell. So what I do is I put one single line through the word Texas, and I write Virginia and then initial it. And then same thing for that county. I put the county that I'm in, write one single line. Don't scribble through it. Don't write it out. One single line so you can see what's underneath it. Initial it, and you're done. Okay, and I stamped that one, yeah. So what I'm going to do now while he's still writing is I'm going to get a copy of his ID. Make sure when you take a copy of the ID that's on a clear background and get a good picture. The whole point is for them to be able to read what's on the ID. So if you get it too far away or if it's fuzzy, it doesn't serve a purpose. So make sure the ID is clear. And then you're going to have instructions on where you need to send the ID to. So it's usually in your email confirmation or it might be in your sample loan docs where you need to send those documents to. Where you need to send the ID to. But I hold on to the ID because there may be another form in here that I have to use in order to fill it out with. Awesome. And then I always just double check, even though I'm not doing anything on here, I want to make sure everything is completed correctly. Okay, and as I said before, anything that doesn't need to be signed or filled out, I just keep going. I only present the documents that need signatures. So the next one we're going to do is the actual settlement statement or closing statement for the seller. It breaks down all the fees and closing costs that went into the actual selling transaction. And then I will tell them we're going to sign the second page at the top.